Hello, good evening, everyone. I am going live with the lovely Nurse Practitioner from Laurel Fertility Care, which is a boutique fertility clinic in San Francisco, America. And we are going to be talking about all of the unhelpful comments that people regularly hear in the trying to conceive community, and what you can do to kind of support yourself when you receive comments like these. And also it's really interesting to hear from a nurse's point of view how she, what she suggests when she hears this from many of her patients. So I'm going to invite Laurel in now, and Rebecca and I will start chatting. So please do let us know where you're joining from tonight, whether you've had any difficult comments, whether you've had people tell you, why don't you just? And this is all around National Infertility Awareness Week. Hello, welcome.
Hi, so nice
How
to
are
be
you,
here.
Rebecca? It's
I'm
nice
great,
to
thank
meet you.
you. Thank you so much. I've followed your account way before I even worked at Laurel Fertility, so I'm really
Ah,
excited to meet you live, and I
ah.
just really appreciate all that you've done for this community. I'm really grateful.
Oh, well, it's so lovely to be speaking with you today. I've given you a brief introduction, but please could you explain
Perfect.
a bit more about your role and Laurel Fertility Care? And then let's talk about some of the common comments that people are facing in the community when they're
Hmm.
going through treatment or struggling naturally, and sort of advice and thoughts around how to prepare, or well, not prepare for them, but how to kind of get through difficult comments, especially as we're about to head into National Infertility Awareness Week in the States in April. So please tell us a bit more about you.
Sure, yeah. So I'm a women's health nurse practitioner, so a nurse practitioner that has focused in women's health. And I've been working at Laurel since the beginning of the year, and it's been going really well so far. I really love the field of fertility. At Laurel, as a nurse practitioner, I meet with patients individually and do lots of ultrasounding. So when people come in for their monitoring appointments or their lining checks or OB ultrasounds, and doing some of the counseling. And I think as a nurse and as a nurse practitioner, I do really value the conversations I have at each appointment with patients.
Mm-hmm. Do you know, I was speaking with someone earlier, and I was just saying that um, the kind of nurse care that you experience alongside the fertility specialist or specialist, the team that you're seeing, makes such a
Mm-hmm.
difference. The bedside manner, the support, navigating difficulties like the comments we're about to talk about really makes all the difference. So it's,
Yeah.
it's wonderful to hear that you're there and you're supporting people in this way, because I do love the team at Laurel Fertility Care.
Thank
Um,
you.
and so on a day-to-day basis, when you're seeing
Mm-hmm.
patients, how
Mm-hmm.
much kind of time do you spend with patients? And do they open up to you about uh, things that they've heard from friends or things family may have said, and situations like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people open up and express the hardships that they've been going through, mostly in their initial visit, because they're coming to us with a lot of, time and stress and worry that's gone into trying to conceive, and they're making that really big jump to come see us. And so
Mm-hmm.
we have an hour-long appointment with most of our patients at their first visit. And so that's a really a nice space where people often open up about what it's been like trying and being unsuccessful, and hearing those comments. And often people say, we've been trying for 2-3 years, and people just say we should keep trying, but we're deciding to come to you. And I always really tell them it's just amazing that they're making that jump, and it's a really important jump to make, even if it's hard or feels too early or rushed, but that they're coming to us and we can really help them kind of go to the next steps and figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And for anyone who's joining, Laurel Fertility Care have written a really great article for us this month.
Mm.
If you head to our link in bio, I've linked it up so you can read a bit more. And it's full of community stories about the really quite alarming things that people have had to hear from other people who may not be understanding the pain that they're going through
Mm-hmm.
emotionally and physically,
Mm-hmm.
about, why don't you just? So I think one of the most horrendous ones I read was a doctor suggesting to a patient that they break up with their boyfriend because they were infertile, which I found really hard to read because my husband's infertile and we have
Yeah.
donor conceived children. So just
Yeah.
but there are loads of other comments from the
Of
community as
course.
well that people responded where it was kind of you know,
Mhm.
why don't you just have more sex, or why don't you
Mhm.
just I don't know, have sex at the right time or do it the right way, and you just think
Mhm.
well how can we be doing it the wrong way? And it's just kind of, you know, do you not think we've tried that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think people hear comments left and right regarding this matter. And I think, like you said, it often comes from people just ignorance and people not understanding the what the diagnosis of
Yeah,
infertility. One in eight people have it's a medical diagnosis. It's not, oh, you're not having enough sex or you're too stressed out at work. It's actually, whether it's the female bodied or the male body, there's so many different reasons why a person or a couple would be struggling with infertility. So those comments, can be just really hurtful because they undermine someone's experience, and it's not actually asking or being curious. It's, just unsolicited advice.
totally. But I think
Mhm.
also, I mean, from personal experience, what these comments can do is start to shift, like make people feel maybe like there's blame or guilt, or am
Mhm.
I doing something wrong? What did I deserve
Mhm.
to be in this situation? What if I had
Mhm.
tried you know, and then you start to sort of second guess what you're doing. So I
Right.
presume you must see patients where maybe like a cycle hasn't worked, or they're trying different protocol, and
Mhm.
or maybe there's been baby loss, and they start to ask,
Mhm.
you know, was it something I did? Could I have
Mhm.
avoided that? Do you see that?
Yeah, we definitely see that. With loss and with unsuccessful cycles or transfers, I definitely hear that, and it's never an individual's fault. There's a lot that goes into the preparation, the medications, the cycles, and it's never someone's fault how their body responds or doesn't respond. And I try to remind people that even though it feels like a perfect science, we're doing an IUI, it's the exact timing that it should be perfect. It's just a not perfect science, even though it sounds like it's going to be, and just to kind of set that expectations even before people go into a cycle so that they're not disappointed and blaming
Yeah.
themselves. And I think, when people do experience that kind of pain from unsuccess or a loss, I always tell patients too, it's up to you on what you want to do next. Do you need a break from fertility care and seeing us all the time? Or do you want to jump into it and kind of keep going? So I make sure people understand that that's also a choice, and they can really just focus on what they need in that time. And it's not
Mhm.
us pressuring them to kind of keep going until they're successful. There's time.
Hmm. Do you find that generally most patients want to sort of jump into more treatment or take a break?
I think most will do treatments, maybe for a few months back to back, and then if it's still unsuccessful, they'll take a break after that. And then miscarriage and loss is different too, and everyone kind of experiences that differently. So I don't think there's necessarily a standard for trying right after that.
Hmm. Hmm. And tell me about the emotional support that you have at Laurel to help people who are feeling, you know, like I did, in a desperate state to just make this pain go away and to have what you just so want.
Yeah, I mean, we're really open to having as many telehealth conversations and phone calls after if results come back that are, not the best news, or after a transfer. We really want people to feel like that they can keep reaching out and keep asking questions. Sometimes we don't necessarily have answers to everything, but
Yeah.
I think sometimes if someone just goes home and they feel like we've left them, but we want to make sure that they know that they can keep asking us questions and keep meeting with us until they understand a little bit more. And there's also other, support systems and groups on Instagram and Facebook that people can tap into to find other people that have gone through something similarly. And I think, even tying back to what we were first starting off with in terms of the community, sometimes people say the wrong thing, but sometimes people also find people in these conversations that have gone through something similar. And maybe it's not your friend, but your friend says, oh, my sister actually went through this. Like, do you want to talk to her? And I heard from her that this was hard. And so I think your community wants to be there. They just might not do it in the right way. And so kind of finding those people that know how to navigate that and have gone through something similar can be really, really helpful.
Hmm. I'd be really interested to hear people who are joining. Hello.
Mhm.
Could you tell us whether you've experienced any negative comments or unhelpful comments or unsolicited advice, where, you know, people are trying to be helpful or they're trying to be supportive and it's just maybe come out the wrong way, or it's said with the best intention, but really
Mhm.
it's not what you want to hear right now. If you've had any of that, do let us know. I think one of the biggest things that sticks in my mind is,
Mhm.
I went to meet a friend, for lunch when I was going through treatment in the States. I must have come back maybe after a failed cycle. And she said to me that, you know, some other people who we were friends with had commented on how they were surprised at how
Mhm.
open I was
Oh,
about
wow.
my husband's infertility,
Mhm.
and they couldn't believe that I
Hmm.
was speaking about him like this and saying if it was their
Hmm.
husband, they wouldn't, you know, be so open about it. And I just,
Hmm.
I find that so hard, because if you can't talk to your
Yeah.
friends,
Yeah.
like, it's not a bad thing to be open. You don't have to be open, but
Of course.
it's totally up to a
The
person and their
individual.
personality. Yeah.
Yeah, I tell people that, it's good to kind of have a plan to think about what they're comfortable sharing and not comfortable sharing, and who they want to share that with and who they don't, and so that they're not necessarily caught off guard. But of course, I find those comments that your friend said, just inappropriate and not supportive. And it's totally the individual's choice what they do and do not want to share. And often people express that they have a relief of some burden when they do tell people exactly what's going on and their exact medical diagnosis, and educating others can actually feel really good.
Hmm. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's just said, just relax. That comes up a lot. This
Yeah.
is this is one that I read in the article as well. So give
Mm-hmm.
a link in the bio to read more about these
Yeah.
community comments, which Laurel have,
Mm-hmm.
you know, given advice about how to cope with. This
Mm-hmm.
is, so drink a little bit before sex. So get drunk and it will happen. I mean, why do people say things like that?
I think people, maybe feel uncomfortable, so they want to bring something a little bit light or silly or inappropriate to the conversation, and, say like, lift your legs up and stuff like that, that have no medical basis at all. I mean, there are some studies that have shown, less red meat, less alcohol, less cigarettes can help with fertility, but it's not saying that those things will cure your fertility. So
No.
stopping to eat red meat or just relaxing and meditating is not going to cure your fertility. And so I think that is also what something people need to understand, that there's a
Hmm.
lot that goes into this, and it's not just simply your friend is, running too much, or, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Actually, I've just remembered that
Mm-hmm.
a family friend, so parents' generation, had commented
Mm-hmm.
on my mother, saying that she was surprised that my husband and I had gone to the States for treatment and that we should have just carried on trying to conceive naturally. Little did
Mm-hmm.
she know that he'd had an infertility diagnosis with azoospermia, so no sperm. So it was,
Yeah.
you know, it was physically impossible.
Yeah.
And actually, we found that a lot, even with going back to try for a sibling. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who didn't know the full scenario just sort of saying, well, you know, why didn't you carry on trying naturally? Because I'm sure it would have happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's hard, and I think that's, there is a generation gap too. I think, maybe your parents' generation and grandparents,
Yeah,
fertility wasn't a field really back then, and so
no.
people weren't getting these diagnoses or treatments or blood work done, and so it's a new field in that sense, and so I think some people don't even know it exists and why it exists, and so
Hmm.
they'll say comments like that. When they really don't know that 1 in 8 actually are diagnosed with something, and there has to be some medical involvement for success to happen.
Definitely. Someone's just
Mm-hmm.
said, and I'm so sorry for this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
40. I've had 3 miscarriages, and everyone tells me it will happen at least you're getting pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, sitting here 3 pregnancies later and no baby. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's another really awful comment that a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
get, where people are trying to be supportive by saying, at least you know it can happen. But
Mm-hmm.
actually, how does that help the situation when it hasn't resulted in a baby? It doesn't.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't think it helps it at all. That's it's a completely different equation,
Yeah.
and it really diminishes someone's experience and belittles them, that they, it's even flipping the script that they should be grateful they got pregnant, but even when it ends in a loss, that's not anything close to being what they wanted. And I think, yeah, similarly in those situations, you know, just telling people that that's painful or that's not helpful, or it switches the script, and it makes them feel like they're blaming themselves. And so I think that, it's whatever you feel like is right in that situation. If you want to be frank with someone, or if you want to just nod and just kind of let that pass. But I think sometimes after you hear all these hurtful comments, it's hard to go back and see certain friends or certain members of your community. And I think, respect those feelings. All your feelings are valid around fertility care and around loss. And if you feel angry or depressed or sad, and some certain feelings towards a person, it's not wrong to kind of take some time, take a deep breath, and focus on what you really need.
I know that you can't consult, but for someone who is experiencing recurrent miscarriage, what would normally be the support available and the sort of advice there in terms of, what to do next?
Yeah, I mean, similarly, there are Instagram, Facebook communities for recurrent pregnancy loss. But I do think this is something to, not just feel at home to talk to a doctor about.
Absolutely. If anyone else has got any comments that they would like to share, please feel free, because it's really reassuring to hear that it's not just, you're not the only one hearing these things. Everyone gets it, for sure. And if you head to the link in bio, as I just mentioned, Laurel Fertility Care have written a fabulous article for us, which talks about how to deal with difficult comments and unsolicited advice. Why don't you just? As well as our community stories from other people who are in exactly the same boat and have experienced it too.
Yeah, and I think, with all these comments, it's hard to not internalize them and to blame themselves. So I try to remind patients that this is not their fault. This is nothing they've caused, nothing their partner has caused. And just to keep making sure they're doing that self-talk to themselves, that this isn't my fault.
Do you know, something that really helped me was also like working out who my friends were, and then just staying close to the people that made me feel happy, and then just sort of distancing myself from people where it just didn't make me feel good to be around them. And that did actually help. So having that sort of security network, and it doesn't have to be in person, it can be friends that you've made in the space online, and in a support app, wherever it might be, for sure. And so Daisy's just said, just use my sperm instead, like that's funny or something. So my husband had a couple of people, saying things like, oh, you're not shooting blanks, are you? And it's like, yes, I actually am. And making light of the situation, it's just, but people deal with things a different way. For my husband, he's very sarcastic, and so for him, he would sort of use humor to sort of cover up his emotions, whereas I was just in tears a lot. So I totally I was just going to say, I'm so sorry. So I've just read someone just said they had a miscarriage last year, and they feel that their body has not been the same ever since. Is that something that you hear from patients?
I think people, do say that, the hormones, whether it's IVF or, pregnancy related, can change bodies. But also it sounds like, maybe emotionally, this has been really hard for the past year. And so, I encourage people to, talk to people or talk to someone in the community or a doctor about if they do feel like, they're still not themselves and it's been many months or a year since something has happened.
I think that's really, really good advice. So physical support and also emotional support.
Exactly. Yeah. Because, all aspects of our health are important regarding this.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course.
And thank you everyone for joining us, and for your comments too. As I mentioned, please do head to the link in bio and read more, because it's just so wonderful to have the community come together and share their experiences, because I certainly didn't have that 5 years ago, and I just so would have loved it.
Yeah.
Someone, sorry, just to finish, and please do feel free
Yeah.
to share as we finish, but someone's just said they've received some judgment from a decision to use a sperm donor
Mm.
as a single mother by choice. Well, I
Mm.
think that's an amazing thing to be doing, and you know, there should be no stigma around that. So I'm really sorry that
Mm-hmm.
you had some judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I do hear from lots of different people that there is stigma attached to all sorts of different things where there shouldn't be. So don't feel alone in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I always remind people that there's so many ways and paths to become a parent, and what your friends choose or someone else's chose doesn't mean that's what you're going to choose and what's right for you,
Mm-hmm.
and what you're going through. So, remember that, everyone in this community, there's so many ways to become a parent, and it's, our job in fertility to help you get there in the way, in the best way that we can.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic, thank you. And I think
Yeah.
just, you know, someone said their husband doesn't really talk, well, doesn't talk about the miscarriage. Is it normal?
Mm-hmm.
Again, a question for you: when you're speaking with patients, do you see lots of couples dealing with the emotional, physical pain in different ways?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's very individual case from person to person, whether or not they're going through the treatment or the partner. And I think people do respond. Some people shut down. Some people cry. Some people use humor or sarcasm, and so it can feel hard when you don't express yourself the same way as your partner. But I think being curious and asking questions. So not feeling like you're alone. So maybe your partner hasn't been expressing some things, but you could always ask, like, is there something that you've been thinking about or something that's been hard, and sharing what's been hard for you, and to see if that conversation kind of helps you feel less alone, instead of just wondering in your head, are they okay? Are they just totally fine? This isn't a big deal for them.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice. Well, thank you so much. And for
Thank
anyone
you.
joining or listening back, please do head to our link in bio, read more about these comments, read more about Laurel Fertility Care's support, and also the team are always happy to help. So please do reach out to them. They have a beautiful clinic in the San Francisco Bay Area, and can help anyone around the world. So thank you so much for joining me
Of
today.
course. Thank you so much. We'll be in
Thank you,
touch.
everyone. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.